Sorry, guys. All right, let's. All right, yes, check out Sep Rock's Bandcamp. Amazing, amazing beats from Sep Rock. All right, where the hell is my camera? Damn. So, as you guys have seen, this episode is entitled, or titled, entitled? I don't know which one. Titled. It should be titled. Titled "The Stripper's Guide to Financial Freedom," and it's a strange. I have to admit, it is a strange title to this thing. All right, looks like we got a couple people on Facebook. This is a live show, so jump on the chat stream. Also, there is a Skype link, so if you want to tell your thoughts live on air, or on the stream, you can do that. Just jump on and Skype me. Oh, actually, let me make sure Skype's running. It might not be running. All right. So anyway, Superfan Chris, what's up, man? Welcome to the show. Welcome. All right. So looks like we lost all our Facebook people have gone. That's all right. Let's see. Let's put Facebook over here. They sort of come and go. Facebook, well, there's no Facebook people, so whatever. YouTube people, what's up? We're up to three very unique and very special people on this world, with billions of folks out there hanging out tonight, talking about the Stripper's Guide to Financial Freedom. So what is that all about? So the whole episode is inspired by this. Oh man, what would I say? It's like a. Excuse me. It's a post from someone who really has an ideological sort of position very different than me. So I guess ideologically opposed. I mean, I don't really know what ideology I would say I have, other than I think humans should be treated as humans in all shapes and forms, and that also hold on one second. Sorry, this is a little new. I'm setting up some stuff for you guys, because there is a series of screenshots I've gotten. I'm going to show you guys what's up in this conversation here in a second. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So anyway, I mean, I don't know that I have a specific ideology. People could label it as different things, I'm sure, but I don't really have. I don't like labels. I like talking about issues. I don't like to label myself. I don't like to. Oh snap! I don't like to. What do you call it? Have to be put into a box. And that I think is something that people. I think that's part of the problem we're having right now in our society, writ large, is that people are getting their identities sort of tied up into their political position, or they're creating this sort of, either what they define, either what they are or what they're not, and they stick to these sort of boundary lines on different issues. So anyway, I'm flipping through Facebook. I decided, and I mentioned earlier on the show in past episodes, that I have a pretty bad Facebook history. I think I lost a lot of friends through this weird phase where I was like totally socially unconscious in a way. I didn't care if they were like friends or not. If they had a different opinion, I was like, let's hash it out. And some people don't really like hashing out stuff, and whatever. And then they would get frustrated. I'd get frustrated. We start calling each other names, and it's stupid. So I try to sort of stay away from that. Every once in a while, I catch myself. I realized that I was wasting a lot of time. You know, so I've backed off from the whole Facebook shenanigans. But I saw this, and I'm like, look, I'm not going to go through and spend an hour or however much time it takes to try to convince some of these folks about whatever position I'm trying to espouse, because they don't really care to really understand. I've already talked to these folks. Now, I don't like to make assumptions, one of the four agreements, but I also don't like to waste my time, and I'm also not insane. So I don't want to repeatedly do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. All right, so let's see. We have a few folks jumping in on the chat stream on YouTube. We have a couple people. Oh, we had 2 people on Facebook. They have now bailed. If you, for the one person on Facebook, if I were you, I would jump over to the YouTube channel. The chat stream works a little better, and stuff like that. All right, Monique is on. What is up? Superfan Monique is joining us tonight. Let's see. Josh is on. What is up, Josh? Superfan and super guest Josh is here. He don't dance now. He makes money moves. Yes, indeed. So let's there is some there's a couple avenues we could take with this discussion about the future of the financial stability of stripping, and whatever. I mean, one thing I want to preface is that I'm not trying to make this show as like a stripper shaming event. That's not what it's about. There's some folks that enjoy I'll say it, art of this type of dance, and and there are many occupations, if voluntarily chosen to do that, whatever, go ahead and do your thing, boo, if that's what you want to do, right? So I guess that's part of the discussion. So I'm not saying in this episode, I don't want to say that I have the right definitive answer. I'm just looking at this, trying to dissect this interaction as a social interaction amongst Americans. Okay. I've been in some pretty intense spats with this person, and I'm not going to try to rehash that stuff. Now, if said person, which I did say on this on the what's it called, on the Facebook thread, I did post that I would be dissecting that post and the accompanying commentary thread as a social commentary, socioeconomic commentary in of itself, here on the Boyd. So hopefully someone who posted comments that will be shown here with no names to protect those who don't want their names shown. And we'll just sort of go from there. So I'm going to read out the stuff, because eventually we are going to have this be an audio only show. So right now I don't have anything on SoundCloud and all that stuff, but here we go. All right. Pardon me. All right. So Superfan Chris says, haha, Josh. Monique is laughing and clapping. And Josh said, did you say box? Box. When did I say box? Maybe I might have said it. All right. Looks like we have 6 folks on the YouTube channel. All right. So now we're down to 5. But either way, hey, jump onto the live chat, jump onto the stream. Skype stream. Well, hold up. Let me see Skype. I don't know. Skype is acting out lately. I don't know what's going on here. So hopefully Skype's working. If it's not working, then I don't know what to tell you. Just type in the live chat. There is a chance that Skype, it should be working. I just don't see it. It bothers me that I don't see it anywhere here in the system tray. All right, whatever. Okay, I can't make the episode about that. All right, so here we go. Let me find the post. So this all started with an original Bernie tweet. So let me pull up the Bernie tweet. Pardon me. And let's take a look, see at what we got. All right, here we go. So here's Bernie tweet. So Bernie's a little cut off because of the way I had to make this screenshot because of my limited capacity and a little bit of Hofstadter's rule. All right, so here we go. Bernie Sanders says in a tweet, he says, "What would canceling all student debt mean for you and your family?" Right, and of course, that is tying into his campaign. Excuse me. One of his campaign issues is to basically eliminate or otherwise pay down, bail out student loans for, folks that are struggling with student loan debt. Liz Wheeler, a conservative commentator and often Fox News either host, I think she's a host now, pardon me, and also guest commentator, it says to Bernie, "It would mean that I responsibly paid for my own schooling, and now you are forcing me to pay for somebody else's." So, interesting take on that. What was I going to say? Oftentimes a conservative point of view is this sort of credo of like a responsibility that I took responsibility for me, you take responsibility for you, and like we go our merry way. If you die, you die. If I live, I live. If I die, I die. Let's just keep it that way. Which, there's folks that feel that way. Okay, great. I mean, we could also take this the argument into private schools for your kid. You know what I mean? There's public schools. You pay taxes for your public schooling. Should we eliminate public school? Some of these super libertarians say, yeah, we should eliminate public school. That's a whole other discussion, right? But that's the argument there. It would mean I responsibly paid for my own schooling. Now you're forcing me to pay for somebody else's. And we have a lot of examples of where that would it would be somewhat problematic in situations like, I don't know, firefighting. Oh man, I never had my house burned down. Here I am paying for everyone else's burnt house, right? It sort of stopped. This meme phrase that goes around. We live in a society. Hashtag, we live in a society. Stuff like that. I mean, so anyway, so there's the post. And so let's see if we got any commentary. Maybe someone has some commentary about the post. Doesn't look, infinity screen. Whoa, where we go? Melting into infinity. That's pretty interesting effect. All right, so let's see the Bernie tweet here. Hold on. Let's see if Facebook has anybody. Got 3 folks on Facebook. I don't see. All right. So Facebook folks, go ahead and throw some commentary and see what you think. Now, oh snap. This is in paint. I forgot. All right. So let's look at the next thing. So what do we say? Josh says, let's talk about why strippers strip. Let's talk about that. And Monique says, hey, with some clap. I think that's a clap emoji. I'm finally seeing emojis, which is cool. All right, so I guess somebody came in and and commented on this, defending Bernie Sanders. And they say that is not a valid argument. After the initial payoff that some deem as unfair, their children's and grandchildren's college will be paid for along with yours and mine. Either that or make colleges charge less. College tuition has increased tenfold in the last 30 years, and the degree is required for jobs that didn't get them. I'm just sick, I guess. I don't know how. Whatever. I don't deserve to have my student loans paid off. I didn't get a degree. But I know many who have had a hard time paying theirs off, and I'm just going to read it. And they're working in the career in which they received a degree. This affects their ability to buy cars and houses and contribute to the economy. Okay, rant over. Okay, so a few points there. Now, one of the things that Liz Wheeler, of course, doesn't account for is that, it's a slippery slope. We could go backwards and say everyone should have to pay for elementary school all the way through high school. Individually, if you can't afford it, then your kid doesn't go to school. Tough cookies. And, in a situation where, the requirements for putting yourself creating making yourself a viable candidate in the eyes of recruiters and hiring managers might be that you need to get a degree, or at least that's what you're told as a child. I tell people a lot of times as a financial planner, if someone were to ask you, hey, in 4 to 5 years, what field and job should I invest in? What specific field and company should I invest in order to pay off a loan that I'm about to take? And by the way, my livelihood depends on it. I need you to guarantee this. And so, by the way, that would be illegal if they were to guarantee that, number one. And number two, they would never try to give you that kind of advice. They can give you some kind of loose advice about some kind of sector or what their thoughts are. But like, hey, I can't guarantee anything. In fact, it's illegal if I were to do that. Yet we ask our children to do that. And so they ask for help. They ask for direction. And what do people tell them? They tell them, go get a degree. They tell them even go to trade school. Okay, great. Let's go to trade school. Well, if I can't, if like Tulsa welding school is throughout the day. It's like an 8-hour course throughout the day. Sure, it's a cram course, but it's like 4 weeks or more or something like that. And it's throughout the day. A lot of people can't afford to work some kind of night job enough to live and eat and do whatever and go to this trade school, or they can't afford the apprentice labor charge, which is basically minimum wage or some really low amount to enter into a trade field. Or again, you have to still pay for trade school. Even if it's less than college, it's still a cost and still a barrier to a lot of folks. And sometimes especially with conservatives like this person is, all constantly trying to cut and or shut down education programs and funding therein. It's a catch-22. It's something that's almost created by them in order to benefit a few people. And that's what they don't understand, that they're being used as tools. They're useful idiots, these folks that are defending a system that has them contemplating stripping at 45 and using that as a almost like a badge of honor. Like, oh, hey, well, and maybe it is. Maybe let's talk about that. Maybe we should look at is it are there some similarities and compare things we can compare and contrast about being a 45-year-old entering into the stripping world versus a 45-year-old trying to finish their bachelor's degree or something like that. Let's talk, right? Again, this is a dissection of a discussion that was done, and I did not join this discussion. I'm merely sort of breaking it apart. So here we've had one response, and I know there have been a couple comments on the on our live chat. Let's see what they say on the live chat. So Superfan Chris says the whole student loans program is a complete sham. Josh says paid versus paid. LOL. Yes, indeed. Many, yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next comment. Yes, the response. So this is in response. So the original poster of this Bernie tweet goes on to say in response, don't go if you can't afford it. I couldn't, and my family had no money to pay, so I didn't go. It's simple math, really, to determine if it's worth it, though. It cost X dollars to get chosen degree. Loan is to be paid off at X dollars over X amount of years. Does the job pay an annual income large enough to support you and pay off said debt? It's being responsible and planning accordingly, not demanding a bailout for crappy decisions. Now, interesting, had we said that to GM, had we said that to AIG, had we said that to the, when Obama and Bush bailed them out, would that count as well? Do we get the same commentary in that just direction? I don't know. Also, again, if a certified or if a professional financial planner, a professional financial advisor can't tell you in 4 to 5 years what exact role or exact field would be a dominant field in that time frame, they would really have to hedge their what they're saying. They would tell you to have a diversified portfolio and some other crap like that. If you were going to invest everything in this one thing and take loans out in order to make an investment pay off, they would tell you, you're crazy. Don't do that. You're insane. Yet we ask our children to do this in high school, right? And predict what is going to be the pathway. And of course, we never really think about efficient markets theory. I harp on this all the time, and people that are out there in the world who have argued with me in some of these what's it called? Facebook debates and all that crap that I was talking about. I talk about this quite a bit. Efficient markets theory or efficient markets hypothesis. So let's talk about here. Here we have, I'm going to try to fit this where I can get it. All right, here we go. Where are we? Let me move this. Hold on, stand by while I get this to work. All right, so let's talk about efficient markets theory or efficient markets hypothesis. This is from Investopedia. All right, so what is the efficient market hypothesis? EMH is an investment theory whereby share prices reflect all information and consistent alpha generation is impossible. Theoretically, neither technical or fundamental analysis can produce risk-adjusted excess returns or alpha consistently, and only inside information can result in outsized risk-adjusted returns. According to EMH, stocks always trade at their fair value on stock exchanges, making it impossible for investors to either purchase undervalued stocks or sell stocks for inflated prices. As such, it should be impossible to outperform the overall market through expert stock selection or market timing. The only way an investor can possibly obtain higher results is by purchasing riskier investments. You see, so let's break that down. What does that mean? What am I saying by that when I'm alluding to efficient market hypothesis? It's that when you tell everybody that STEM is where the money's at, and that's where the demand is, and that's where you should go, what is everyone going to do? They're all going to what? Do it. And so if everyone goes and does it, will it be in demand? No. And so if the market is efficient, it will react to what you know. So if it takes you 4 years to react to what you know now, then what will happen when the market actually gets there? When they tell you, go get an engineering degree, and then you got mechanical engineers in call centers making $12 an hour. You got electrical engineers sitting here, they're selling cell phones, right? This does not jive. You see what I mean? And plus, who said you can't export an electrical engineering or mechanical engineering job out to India or Bangladesh or anywhere else, Ireland even, right? If the American economy is not, or the American workers not taking the money with them, then yeah, it's going somewhere else, right? All right, so let's keep going in our little path. Actually, hold on. Let's wait. Hold on. Is this the right? Yes. Okay. Let's see if we got any responses. Excuse me. In our live chat. So we have a few folks still with us on YouTube. Wow, we dropped down to three very, very unique folks in the billions of folks. Dropped down to 2. Here we go. All right, so telling you how unique you are, and now you're even more unique. You're the 2 left. All right, so super guest Josh says perhaps people should have more faith in themselves to be able to pay it back. Superfan Chris says, I believe most have faith they can pay it back after graduating and landing that quote-unquote dream job that corresponds with their degree. However, the high interest rates and monthly payments derail those plans. And again, going back to efficient markets theory, everyone says there's such a demand for nurses, Everyone goes and becomes a nurse. Now there's so many nurses, they're making $13 an hour. Right? Unless you have tenure. And what does that take? It takes time. Meanwhile, your kids need food. Meanwhile, the mortgage needs paid. And meanwhile, you're still paying student loans, right? So this whole discussion, this pull yourself up by your bootstraps crap is it works for some folks, but it doesn't work consistently enough if we're really thinking about educating Americans, is my point, I guess you could say. All right. So Josh says, I disagree, coming from experience that I had student loans. I, in fact, have some student loans myself. There are some ways that you could manage them. However, they do act as a parasitic load, I guess, quote unquote, upon you as you try to traverse through a job market in which you have no escape from, right? You are part of the matrix. You can't unplug your own head. You have to have from the matrix. You have to have some Morpheus give you the pill, which spits you out of the machine. So not everybody gets access to this kind of thing. Not everyone can get student loans. Some people, who knows, they got some kind of crazy latchkey story. I don't know. And they can't get good high school education. Blah, blah, blah. There's a million things that can get in the way of our fellow Americans from getting an education. I don't understand why there is such a point of contention with helping other Americans get better at being humans and Americans. I don't get it. Just making us all better by education. Why would you want to thwart efforts towards education? Anyway, so she goes on to say, not everyone needs to go to college. That is not the only career path, nor does every good job require a degree. And that's true. That's true. However, efficient markets theory, we have to remember that no one gets a good deal, right? So what is the alpha component in this? I mean, I don't want to get down to, we don't need to go that far. Basically, that what is going to give you a high wage? What's going to be in demand? Well, if it's in demand, then there's probably less people. Why? Is there a barrier to entry? It could be an intellectual barrier to entry. It could be that you need to know someone, a networking barrier to entry, a financial barrier to entry, certifications, licensure, various barriers to entry can exist, right? So anyway, let's see what else we got, like or needing a degree, for instance. I mean, for even some of these like entry level customer service style jobs, I mean, they're looking for degrees. I mean, Fidelity Investments, to answer the phones, to help someone dump some money out of their IRA, you need a freaking degree. I mean, that's basically, if you don't have a degree, you're trash. You're not going to even get looked at by the hiring manager. So don't even, you know what I mean? It's like I don't even know if they let you through the selection algorithm that spits you out of the 1,000 people that applied for that one job. Something to think about, side note, in the discussion on why strippers strip is, think about this: for every job you apply for, and remember, for those of us who have been in the job market for a while or have actually applied for the job for a job recently, you know, most of the times you can't just simply attach or send your resume. You not only have to do that, excuse me, but you should have a custom tailored resume with keywords that match what they are likely looking for, right? You have to try to read their mind, likely looking for in their to fulfill the role that they're seeking, right? In order for your resume to pass through the filter algorithm, let's say you actually did that. Okay, so number one, you probably have to have multiple resumes. If it's for a sales job, of course, sales resume. If it's some other kind of job, you have to custom tailor it for that. So here you are, custom tailoring your resume. Yay, that's time, right? And then you put in the application. You're filling out all your stupid crap that you got to fill out. Now, thank God, autofill helps out with some of that stuff. Hold on, since I'm ranting on that, I'll just turn the camera back on. You know, you got autofill and stuff to help you out, but at the same time, you know, it's annoying as fuck trying to fill this shit out. It takes forever. It is tedious, etc. And then you have to fill out all your resume all over again, basically, and along with your personal or whatever your normal address information, other personal information. And then you probably have to take some kind of stupid ass assessment, which takes you 30 minutes, could take you 40. I don't know how much time they're going to suck away from you. And that's just your preliminary application. That's before even a phone interview or any follow-up or anything else. You might have spent 30 minutes to an hour, right? And then let's say you get the phone interview, right? You might still be out of an application pool of a couple hundred people, right? Think about that. If you even if you make it through the first step, if you're one of 200 for a specific applicate or a specific role, you have what, a 0.5% chance of actually of getting to the next step, to the phone interview, right? Now your odds of getting to the next step increase every time you make it to the next level, as they chop off maybe only 10 people get phone interviews. Well, hey, you made it, right? But if someone said, hey, look, I need you to work for an hour doing something, you get a 0.5% chance of getting paid. Would you do it? Would you do it? Would you want to sit there? Let's say you're applying for 5 jobs and it takes you 5 hours total to apply for these 5 jobs with all the assessments, all the other bullshit. And you apply for these 5 jobs and it takes you 5 hours. And each of these 5 jobs has at least 100 people applying. Now, statistician Josh could probably help with this. If you have 100 people per 5 jobs and you apply, and you basically have 1% chance at each of these with 5 of them going, you probably have a bit more than a 1% chance of getting a job out of all of this time. So you spent 5 hours on basically a 1% chance of getting a job at one of these places if there was 100 applicants per job. And some of these jobs have thousands, literally thousands of applicants. So you have a fractionally small chance of actually getting the job. So why would someone strip? Because if you can make it onto the stripping the way, the whatever, the dance floor thing, stage, whatever it's called technically, strippers help me out. Then I guess that you made it, but you have some odds there too. So I guess if you have enough people tell you, hey, you should strip, or you could strip and make a little bit of money or some money, or you'd be good at it. like that the stripper tells Pam in the office. I don't know. I mean, take it how you like. I said, I'm not trying to make this a stripper shaming episode, but it is something where some folks have more of a social stigma, and the thought that the way to solve the crisis of having economic and financial difficulties is to contemplate stripping as a viable source of income is sort of scary for some folks. Like, wow, I got friends that are telling me, hey, I'm trying to make it as a stripper. So tell me about it. Like, wait a minute, why don't you do something else? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just a strange situation to me. All right. So Superfan Chris says, I visited a coffee shop in the city about 2 years ago. Every barista was a college graduate and not working in the degree field they had just paid $50,000 plus for. Yeah, crazy. People must take responsibility for their actions. No doubt. There should definitely be some responsibility. But it's like when people get conned, that a lot of times you don't victim blame the con or the conned, right? Too much. You try not to. I guess, yeah, you get responsibility. Maybe you should have vetted them harder, blah, blah, blah. Shame on you for trusting humans to be good to each other and honest. But, you can't trust people too much, I guess. All right. So what else we see here? Superfan Chris says, oh, wait, hold on. Superfan Chris said, so they put this demand out for certain degrees, which drives up the college enrollment rates, only to find out that when you land the job, the pay doesn't match up with what you expected to make, or Chris agrees with Josh. Then I run into people who are making hundreds of thousands per year and didn't even make it out of high school eligible, let alone a college campus. Josh says sales jobs always pay the most. Yeah, no doubt. Sales jobs a lot of times will give you a big chunk of whatever it is that is out there. Let's see. Supervan Chris says, are the educational systems set up as money-making generators? Yes, indeed, they are. And the state and or any of the federal, any of the government-run stuff, you have to look at the operations with a grain of salt, because you have to know that there is a group of people with an ideology that is such that they would just as soon starve and destroy the government entity in favor of installing them and their friends as the private entity who extracts the money with a profit motive. You see what I mean? So that you have to remember that that is a pervasive ideology in our society. Pardon me. Superfan Chris says, yes, sales is by far the highest paying profession in the world if you're good at it. Yes, if you're good at it. And of course, that in of itself has barriers, etc. Josh says, we are taught not to go into sales, yet every job is sales. Yeah, to some degree, you have to sell. In the capitalist world, you have to market yourself, right? You have to. It's like the do-it-yourself rental tool people, or Home Depot or Lowe's. Lowe's, and I think Lowe's even stopped their rental program. It's really something like that. Like, why would I go to Lowe's or versus do-it-yourself rental to rent? And so they're going to advertise, you should rent from us because of this, or I'll give you a discount, etc. So basically, as a wage slave, you are putting yourself up for rent. So let's say you're trying to make widgets at the widget factory. You need to sell your capacity to be a great widget maker to the widget maker capitalist who created the widget making enterprise. Now, even if it was a cooperative, you'd still have to sell yourself to that cooperative to get on to the cooperative. For instance, let's say I create a cooperative and everyone's getting paid buku bucks because you don't have some profit, necessarily a specific profit class that is within the structure. If that's the case and all the workers are sharing their profit thusly, what would be the incentive to work in the out in the capitalist world, right? So then the cooperative would have to be sort of picky and choosy, as long as the business isn't scaled out with the employment demand. However, the interesting part about the cooperative enterprise is that wages are set by democratic control over profit to some degree, as opposed to under the capitalist model, where you have people who are basically fighting over the same position, to where they have no choice but to fight for that position. There is no alternative to exploitation. If you don't, let's say you were born with no resources, what can you do? You have to find a system of exploitation, or an enterprise of exploitation, in order to earn a wage, right? And why is it exploitation? Because if you're getting paid X amount, the total profit being generated is different than that. It's X plus Y, right? And so someone is getting Y, and so that's the thing you always have to think about. Karl Marx even talks about, in the capitalist world, the wage earner always knows that when they apply for the wage, that the capitalist is making more than they're being paid, right? And that the product of their labor is not necessarily given to them. It is extracted from them. So if 100% of the product of your labor is extracted from you, that's called slavery. At what percent is it not slavery anymore? So when the capitalist gives you 50% of the product of your labor, of course, after expenses, after all of that stuff, let's say we're talking about the profits generated by you, and they say, well, I'm taking 50, and you take 50. I'm like, well, okay, so for how long will we do this? Oh, we'll do this forever. You've agreed to take that, right? Now, I have no other choice. If I don't enter into this relationship of exploitation, then I have no food. I have no where to live. I can't set up camp on government land, and I can't live on private land, right? So I have to buy my way out by being exploited enough to where I have an excess capacity for saving, to either invest or have enough capital to, you know, like basically invest intellectually or physically in some kind of physical resource. All right, let's go into the live chat on YouTube. Looks like we have one person joining us on Facebook. Check out the YouTube link. That way you can put in some live comments, or you could just write a comment on the Facebook live stream. We're talking about some crazy stuff, socioeconomic dynamics in America. All right, so Superfan Chris, bingo. Yet when brought into a sales job, everyone always says, I can't do sales. I'm not good at it. Superfan Chris says, stripping is a form of sales. You have to do certain things or dance a certain way to persuade your client to pay you more than the other stripper. And no doubt. That's why there is a, art component and all that stuff, persuasive component, blah, blah, to that. If you want to get in, I don't know how deep you want to get into dissecting stripping in general. But yes, also Josh points out that it is a great workout. There was a whole, and possibly, I guess it's still going on, the whole stripper workout thing that was happening. Anyway, Superfan Chris is out. Thanks for joining us, Superfan Chris. And, Josh, super guest Josh is, and practically co-host Josh is out. So good night, Josh. Let's type in. Yeah. All right. So that's what we've got going on so far. So let's talk about, let's go back into the response. So she says, not everyone needs to go to college. Or hold on. Let me pull this back here real quick. Not everyone needs to go to college. etc. Notice every good job required a degree. Okay. Oh, whoops. There's a picture. Didn't mean to put that there. All right. So don't look at that picture. Maybe I'll scooch this. Bam. Haha. All right. Here we go. So then those who can't afford college are stuck working 2 mediocre jobs for the rest of their lives. In turn, probably not able to afford health care, but make too much for Medicaid. So if they get sick, then oh well, sorry about your luck. In addition to this, they can't afford luxuries like going out to dinner or buying stuff, which keeps the economy going. Indeed, the concept of the paradox of thrift is often lost on these conservatives who claim to know so much about economics, yet know nothing about economic terms and or ideas. So let's talk about the paradox of thrift. So yeah, that's the idea that basically if you the paradox of thrift is that if you are saving money, then you are not helping the economy, right? So the paradox of thrift or paradox of savings is an economic theory which posits that that personal savings are a net drag on the economy during a recession. This theory relies on the assumption that prices do not clear or that prices do not clear or that producers fail to adjust to changing conditions, contrary to the expectations of classical microeconomics. The paradox of thrift was popularized by British economist John Maynard Keynes. Understanding the paradox of thrift, according to Keynesian theory, the proper response to an economic recession is more spending, more risk-taking, and fewer savings. Keynesians believe a recessed economy does not produce at full capacity because some of its factors of production, land, labor, and capital, are unemployed. Okay, so that goes into, so she didn't know that she was talking about really alluding to this concept of the paradox of thrift. All right, so what else is going on? Whoops, in this social commentary, or excuse me, this comment thread. What I feel like is being said is only the wealthy should be allowed to go to college, or people who will for sure make enough when they graduate to afford the loan payment, not to mention the families who land in the gray area of not being able to do either and are expected to pay $12,000 a year for community college. This would mean that no one will choose to become a teacher or EMT because they can't afford to live on the entry-level salary, let alone pay a student loan back, eventually creating a shortage of workers in areas where we already have a shortage. She's absolutely right, because these libertarians and conservative, quote-unquote, economists, they never really think through to the, what do you call it? They never think it through to the inevitable conclusion of whatever their decision is to be their ideologically based decision or statement. So, right, what this person would say in response to, well, the fact that no one would be an EMT or a teacher, well, then their response would be, yeah, no one would be EMT and teacher. We wouldn't have enough, and then we'd have to pay more for them, and then that would be the market adjusting itself. Right. And meanwhile, we have a teacher shortage. Meanwhile, your kids still have to go to school. Meanwhile, okay, they don't go to school. So what? You're going to teach them? Right. I mean, you're already not familiar with material reality. And now you want to teach your kids because you think you can do it better than folks that have a passion. I mean, why is it that EMTs get paid so little? Why is it that teachers get paid so little? Could it be that there is an intrinsic drive to be either an EMT or a teacher that is not financial, right? And the fact that it is not financial is being taken advantage of. And so herein lies another contradiction, another paradox of capitalism. That very necessary, like something like the trash person or a sanitation worker. Very necessary jobs will be low-paying jobs because of the supply of people that are capable of doing them, even though they are highly important, right? And again, the wage that is being levied upon this or offered to this person is not based on a truly free market. It is based on a captive market, a market in which you have no choice but to enter into an exploitative arrangement with someone who can stand or has the ability and resources to exploit you. Now, if we had something like the commons, basically a common area where, or maybe you could put your name in a lottery and win 40 acres and a mule, and you can go live there, and you and your family can go there. In fact, there might be some kind of special subsidies for solar power and special technology, sort of like they did with land grants back in the day, with land grant colleges for white people, so they can expand out west and learn how to maximize the land for a stronger America. We could do shit like that. That was done in America. So these people that think that there's no good government program, that there's no good thing that exists, they simply are not aware of history and what's happened in our very own country. But anyway, so very interesting response, rebuttal there that we get. So what is the answer? Let's go back to, actually, hold on. She has some more to go. Sorry, it's all chopped up, but just limited in what I could grab off of Facebook. And then there are the ones who can afford it. Then there are ones who can afford it, or their salary is enough to get a student loan, like lawyers and doctors-ish, I guess. There are a limited number of these higher level jobs. We could find people with law degrees working at I think find is what she meant. We could find people with law degrees working at the corner store, a degree wasted. This isn't some far-fetched idea. This is a reality of many, many people struggling to make ends meet. We're not asking for things like cost-free college because we want a handout. We're asking for the same opportunities as everyone else. This works. Germany is an example of this. Finland, even England, are examples of how beneficial free college is. Okay, so here we go. Here's a response, and this is what tripped me into, or not tripped me, but like drove me into, or inspired the episode. Here we go. The response back. Believe me, I'm struggling. At 45, trying to go back to stripping. So apparently she was a stripper at one point. Trying to go back to stripping. You have no idea. And you'll hear a lot of this sort of martyr talk from a lot of, and I don't want to label people, but there's just a lot of trending that's happening. So a trend that I've seen is a lot of conservative folks will levy a martyr complex account or some kind of martyr statement like that. So, you have no idea, I'm spending so much time away, just working for the family, 70, 80 hours a week. I'm like, okay, well, meanwhile, your kids are growing up without you. So cats in the cradle, yeah, great. But the whole point is they don't know each other, and life is gone by chasing airplanes and working for someone else, and you missed out on your kid. Yay. I guess, is that the American dream? Is that what we're trying to strive for as a nation? I mean, I don't know. Let's talk about it. All right. So here we go. So you have no idea. Wages do need to be more. They have never kept up with inflation. Yeah, you're right. So let's get out of wage slavery and guarantee workers equity in the enterprises they help build, and democratic control of workplaces, aka cooperative arrangements. So let's, through taxation and other legislation, make it so corporations are not favored and cooperatives are favored. Guess what would happen? You would have higher wages, or at least not necessarily wages. You would have higher compensation because profit would be distributed at creation to the creators of the profit. You could say, well, the capitalist created, or the whoever created the cooperative. Sure. Okay. Let's do something. Let's set something up through tax scheduling, where if a owner gives up 75% or more of their company to their workers, that they get a special tax break. If you give 90% to your workers, you get 10% of all of dividends and capital gains that are resulting from those shares of creating an enterprise that will be tax-free. How about that? What if it was tax-free? What if you owned 10% of Walmart? Walton family owns 10. I don't know how much they own of Walmart, but imagine in your brain that you were the family of something the size of Walmart. You own 10% and it was tax-free. Would you be pretty happy? Would you be making a decent amount of money? Probably would, right? So if the workers were getting paid a whole bunch, you could still get paid a whole bunch, right? And still grow the business and blah, blah, blah. It's just a matter of why, not for some reason our society and culture can understand that if I give you $100 for shares, then I own a piece of your company. But I can give you 100 years of my life and know nothing at the end of it. There is a specific cultural dynamic that's missing, just like it was missing when we thought it was okay to own another human being. There was something missing. And just as Frederick Douglass said, there is something in his experience. There is a slavery of wages, only a little less galling than that of chattel slavery. And it must be abolished along with the other, both together. So yeah, she makes a good point. We should do that. Blame the Fed. Well, the Fed's part of it, the money system and capitalism, but also monetary policy has a lot to do with it. And politicians, namely the ones who have been at it creating laws for decades. I don't know which laws exactly she's talking about. She's right to a large extent. The politicians have screwed a lot of things up. A lot of them are neoliberal, which means the word liberal has been co-opted and twisted by basically the conservative people out there, people like Rush Limbaugh, Hannity, all the Turning Points crew, people that don't really understand the academic sense of social analysis, I guess you could say. Right. And I'm not trying to be snooty about it. I'm just like, I'm not even an academic in that sense. I'm just looking at it as in a generic sense at society. And they misuse the term liberal. Liberal means free. Liberal means that you're not bound by aristocracy or other rules that stop you from doing so. If you want to freely trade, you can freely trade. If you want to enter into an agreement, you can do that. You don't have to be bound by a feudal lord or a king or some other kind of authoritative figure or entity, right? That is liberalism. So, what all of these conservatives keep talking about, saying liberalism is a mental disease and things like that. Liberalism is a free market. Liberalism is having free association amongst people. So this is a term that's been co-opted and twisted by the right or the conservative people because, number one, either they're too ignorant to know better, or they know what they're doing and they are misrepresenting the term. So that's why stuff like neoliberal doesn't make sense. Neoliberal is extreme laissez-faire capitalism. This notion that the market can serve all. The market can serve health. The market can serve safety. The market can serve education. The market can serve defense. The market can serve all. And market can serve environmental concerns. All of these things, homelessness, everything can be solved. The prison, the whole justice system can be solved with a private, profit-making, profit-generating enterprise, as opposed to what has been propagandized as inefficient government bureaucracy. Now, not to say that there aren't inefficient government bureaucracies And the CIA even put out a paper on how you can create additional bureaucracy and create choke points within existing bureaucracy to stop progress from happening within government structures, etc. So again, you have to remember any government entity that exists is also existing while in the environment of something trying to destroy it. Basically, it's being dissolved. It's like a block of salt that is sitting in a cup of water. Eventually, that block of salt will start to dissolve because it's being attacked by the water to be dissolved. And that's sort of the situation that you see. All right, so for decades, the impeachment heroes. So what does that mean? There's no actual substance. There's no actual. Now we can try to make assumptions and read between the lines. It's highly political and biased towards whoever these impeachment heroes are, which I'm assuming are the Democrats in this person's mind, and because they're very vague and nebulous, so we can only make some assumptions. We also live in the fifth most expensive state. All right, so we'll see what else they say. So what do we got? Response 4. So last slide here. We have this one here. Here's the response. We have the fifth most expensive state. Are you for government control of healthcare? Healthcare too. Tell me what happens to the people who choose to be doctors and their value then. So, well, I mean, what's the value of a teacher? Are they not valued just because they don't get paid well? What's the value of a doctor? Is a doctor still not of the same value? Right. So there is some kind of price tag. She feels that there should be that the market will tell you how much you're worth. And so as a stripper, apparently, if she's not making tips, then what does that tell you she's worth? So she better make a lot of tips. Otherwise, she's not worth very much. You're only getting paid what you're worth after all. Right. All right. So this guy, there's another guy actually jumps in and that wants to give some commentary. So here we go. So envy and resentment is a reason to steal money from someone else under the false guise of equality. So here we go. Big deflection and assumptions and all sorts of stuff, right? So who mentioned anything about envy and resentment? It's about the access to resources. If you don't have money to access education, then that becomes a barrier to said education. If you have to take time to save up money, that especially time in a wage that doesn't keep up with inflation in order to get ahead and go to school, then it sounds like it's really a self-defeating prophecy there. That the numbers don't add up to much anything. Because the cost of said degree, what's the outcome, blah, 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 neat little equation. How about this one? I have to pay rent this month and I have bills this month and I can't afford fucking school. Idiot. Right? So if I can't afford to do anything, then what can I do to change? Then there is no change. There is no way out. Right? So this is a constant theme in conservative thought, that they don't take anything to the logical or inevitable conclusion. They never think past their statement. Either they're incapable or they know. It's almost like someone who is walking in the Arctic and they're pretty sure there's a polar bear right behind them, but they're afraid to turn around and look. So if they know that if they continue to the logical conclusion of their statement, that and the real and material reality in which it is applied, then it won't make sense. It's like looking over your shoulder and seeing that polar bear paw getting ready to swipe your face, right? College would still be cheap if there wasn't a customer, the government, with a blank checkbook, right? So So that's sort of that is sort of a dumb statement, really, because if the government had a blank checkbook, then who would be paying? Who's in debt? So are you assuming that the government is paying everybody's debt or paying for everybody's school? What is like college would still be cheap if there wasn't a customer, the government. So the government is the customer, and we have people in student loan debt crisis because why? The government was the customer. Okay, so you can see how these guys don't really have a clue what they're talking about. They're not very economically literate and generally don't have much for critical thought capacity. You'll see that some of these folks. I'll start highlighting them, and it's not that we're not trying to make assumptions. It's just based on the words that they choose to use to express themselves. Okay. And this guy goes on to say wages are reflective of the labor available. Decades of importing cheap labor, right? Little dig at migration. Cheap labor has lowered wages for everyone. He didn't mention the years of outsourcing jobs to places without labor standards that are equal to ours. He didn't mention anything about when people become unemployed and add to the job force. Oh, and efficient markets theory kicks in, a word I'm sure he's not aware of or understands. When there's no one left to mop floors at $8 an hour, employers will have to pay more. So meanwhile, we just won't have anybody mop floors. Right? Is that the answer? Just no, we just won't have people mop floors until then. Right? Again, no one left to mop floors in a captive market. What alternative is there? You have to find something. Mopping floors is a something. You have to find something. So if every other thing is filled, again, efficient markets theory, janitor is going to pay just as much as something else that takes the same level of barrier to entry and ability to access the resource or be able to complete the task. So again, this whole dynamic of, I mean, what kind is it? Is it not Munchausen? Is it Stockholm syndrome, where the captive starts to praise and love their captor? I feel like that's what we're seeing. That like, hey, buck up and deal with this situation. I'm getting ready to go stripping, and I know the story. You don't got to tell me nothing about struggle. Like, wait, what? Right. So why don't we come up with a different solution? Is that the road to financial success? Does the math add up? What's the longevity of this stripping situation? What if you fall off the stripper stage in your stripper heels and you break your stripper ankle? Do you get stripper insurance? How does that work? Who pays for that? When you can't dance, do you get Aflac to help pay for your missing tips? How do you calculate? Do you just have to average over a rolling number of weeks? Is it seasonal? Do you have to come up with that analysis in all these super fancy equations? That would be a great thing to get some insight into. I have never tried the stripping thing. Again, I'm not trying to stripper shame. It's just that trying to play martyr with your decision to go back to stripping as a defense against someone who is saying basically like, hey, kids were lied to and sold a dream, and they're now paying for this con, and should we blame the kids? Right? And maybe how about the parents? Should we blame the parents? They were right there, right? And so here they are right along with them. So it's like saying, hey, I did without. Look at me. I'm fine. I'm going into stripping. You could be just like me, which I could imagine would be a little bit of a scary proposition to some folks that maybe didn't really want to go do something like that. Right. So anyway, got all through the social media comments and whatnot. We've got no one on the Facebook feed, a couple people on YouTube. What are your last parting thoughts about the situation and the system in which we are seeing this kind of social dynamic play out? One person is trying to highlight a crisis, and then there are people that are defending the crisis, defending the struggle of the crisis. And it just, to me, that is something that is, I guess it signifies one of the issues that we're having in our country. So if we don't have any more comments or anything like that, then I'll give you a minute. Meanwhile, I'm going to throw on some Sep Rock beats and let you mull it over. Meanwhile, if I don't hear nothing pretty soon, then I'm going to say so tune in Tuesday, 9 p.m. Sunday set. I'm going to try to, let's say, Sunday sets. I'm doing Sunday. That holiday. For the holiday. Think of some topics. Think something. Write a comment down. Whatever's clever. But thank you for joining on Void, and I am out. Sep Rock Beats. Don't forget. Pimps and chuds. That's how we do it on Void. Peace.